Waka, flocka, flame. Waka, flocka, flame. Waka, flocka, flame. Waka, flocka, flame. I fucked my money up.
Damn.
Now I can't re-up. Ran up in his spot just to get my stats up. Now I'm back on deck. So shout it, what the fuck you want? Heard he talking shit, but this ain't what the fuck you want.
Could I get an Americano with oat milk? Thank you. By the way, before I forget, this is gambian.
We should burn it.
The SD card. Yeah, exactly. So much going on, man. Right now, I've got our corporate lawyer at Northern Industries, our steel group. His name's Mikkel, and basically he's been to war with me, right? So he was our lawyer when we were trying to list the company on the NASDAQ stock exchange. So we've been working with him for about 3 years. I'm formally stepped down as the CEO of our steel group. And so we're just having like a chat, just gonna debrief him. We haven't spoken in a long time. I think he's curious why I'm stepping down as CEO. So gonna update him on that. He's never heard about Ventilation Ventures. He doesn't know we're about to go 0 to 100. He doesn't know. It's all about keeping those relationships going. Later today, I'm hosting a free online webinar masterclass. I think it's over 100 people signed up on how to buy a business in 2025 using leverage LBOs. Thank you so much. I'm a bit nervous. You know what's funny? I've done this 100 times. I've given 100 pitches. I always get nervous for the first 10 seconds. Yeah. Then it's action time. You have to warm up, and you know, it's the good enough thing, right? Like 100 people show up and they're all like, Yusufa, teach us, you know, LBOs, leverage buyouts, M&A. And it's like, damn, what the fuck do I know? You know what I'm saying? Today I'm dressed like a certified finance bro. Yeah. But I'm kind of like a cheap finance bro. This is not Patagonia. I'm fine, bro. You know what I'm saying? Fine, yeah. I think what we'll do is... How you doing?
I'm fine. You know?
Yes. They have Brunham's Bar. Yeah. And rent out to different companies. So this man here,
unfortunately,
he did warn me that at the time, it was an unlikely proposition trying to list our steel group on the NASDAQ micro stock exchange at that time. Given the size of the group, given the environment, I should have listened to our corporate lawyer.
That would have been smart, yeah.
That would have been smart. I didn't listen, so we wasted 2 years. But anyway.
Well, you got a Danish company.
We got exactly.
For no reason at all.
We did a share swap. We used to have a UK holdco, and we went through this complicated corporate share swap, and now it's a Danish entity, basically the equivalent of a PLC. Yeah, Mikkel helped us with all of that. So this man has been to war with me for like a 2.5 year period.
You're stepping down?
I'm stepping down, so I'm no longer, that's announced, so I'm no longer the CEO. Paul is stepping up.
Yeah.
Last financial year, we did about 9% top line growth.
Yeah.
And about 30% EBITDA growth, year on year, organic, no deals. This year, it's gonna be flat. Next year, we'll probably do another 10-15% EBITDA growth. So it's going well. To be very frank with you, I need something faster. So
makes sense.
Last year, I set up a new company, same strategy, but in the HVAC sector. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Okay.
Basically doing a roll-up in the ventilation industry in UK.
Only in UK?
Only in UK. We did the first deal. The company does about £9 million in revenue. Right now, we're trying to raise some money. I'm always looking for money. As long as he's known me, I've never not been looking for money. So right now, we're looking for between 25 to $100 million in the steel group. Magnus is the majority shareholder or the largest, and I'm the second largest. And then we have 29 other shareholders. In the HVAC group, I'm the largest and Magnus is the second largest, so we sort of inverted that a bit. And the joke that I give people is it's a bit like a boy band deal, you know? So with your first deal, you do a lot of singing and dancing. Then you gotta sell a couple of records. Okay, then with the next deal, you know, you get a better deal, you know? So I'm trying to be Justin Timberlake over here. We need at least 20 million pounds this summer.
Yeah, that's soon.
Yeah, that's soon. Yeah.
Money ain't a thing if I got it. Money ain't a thing if I got it. Money. Before the money there was love, but before the money it was tough. Then came the money through a plug.
It's a shame this ain't enough, yo.
Oh yeah. How are the wealthy getting wealthier? They understand this. They understand how to use leverage to accelerate their objective. There's a lot of ways to get wealthy and a lot of ways that the wealthy get wealthier. I'm just gonna focus on one key word, which is leverage. So what is leverage? Leverage is you have a thing, whether that's capital, whether that's time, or whether that's, human resource. You have a thing and you get more out of that thing that you have by using a mechanism, right? So let's talk specifically. So for example, capital. If you have a bit of money, some savings, equity, you can take those savings, use more capital, for example, from a bank, an investor, a lender, and you can acquire and have access to more assets than your specific capital base would have allowed for. So leverage in that case is a unlocker of value. The wealthy do this all the time. So they use other people's money, they use the bank's money. I mean, I'm not a political guy one way or the other, but think of Donald Trump, for example, right? How did he make his fortune in real estate? Through debt. There's countless documentaries that sort of follow his early journey. Again, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I'm strictly speaking as a business set of activities. He used a lot of debt to build his casinos, a lot of debt to buy massive towers in New York City, a lot of debt to buy golf courses, golf clubs. He used leverage. You could lever media. So Oscar, you and I could be having this conversation one-on-one. In fact, we've had many one-on-one conversations. However, right now, we're recording this conversation, documenting this conversation, and capturing this conversation. We're going to distribute it through YouTube, meaning I say it once, and I leverage media. This can be played 10 times, 100 times, 10 million times at the same cost. It cost me one time, right?
Yeah.
So that's leverage. And I think back to the question, which is how are the wealthy getting wealthier? They understand this. In my case, I want to buy businesses that are profitable, that have been trading for decades. Our oldest business has been trading for 160 years. And so if I was to use my money, my cash, there would be a limit to how many of these businesses I could buy. For example, 0, because these are large companies. But by leveraging bank funding and equity investors, i.e. other people's money, there is no limit to how many of these businesses I can buy together with my partners. I'm leveraging capital. I'm also leveraging human resources. Our steel group has 300 full-time employees. That's 300 times the amount of human resource that I'm unlocking through partnering with and employing these colleagues. And therefore, they're doing 300 times the input that I alone could have done. I'm leveraging my employees, I'm leveraging my team, my colleagues, my partners. The wealthy use leverage. We're over there. Fish cake, thank you, sir.
Why is fundraising important?
Fundraising is simply the process of acquiring leverage. A year and a half ago, I set up this holding company called Ventilation Ventures. I had a vision. The vision was, I want to scale from 0 to 100 million pounds in revenue. How do I fund that journey? I don't have the resources to go and buy those companies. I don't have those resources. I need to acquire that capital, telling a story that convinces the people with the capital to make that capital available to you so that you can execute on your vision. Without the money, there's no leverage, because then what have you levered? Nothing. That doesn't mean it's a failure. I mean, look, we have a very successful business. It makes money. We don't have to do anything because we have successfully bought a good business. Now the question is that good enough? Or do we want more?
Yeah, why do you want more?
I don't know. More is just fun. What you shouldn't do is, you shouldn't have your ego or your personality tied up in more, because then you'll never win. This is like a sport. Capitalism is a sport. I enjoy this sport. I think it's fun. What else would I rather be doing? Nothing. I'm the luckiest man in the world. I do exactly what I want to do. I'm choosing to eat this here fish taco sandwich thingamajig with the little yellow sauce on, the cucumbers and all that. I could eat whatever I want. I'm choosing this. How can a beginner get into M&A, buying businesses, using equity from investors and debt from banks, there's a subtext, which is to say, with very little credibility, very little experience and track record, and honestly not having much to offer beside their desire to do this. And just to be very transparent, this ain't for everybody, right? So let's just be clear. I used the metaphor once. I said not everyone can be a backup dancer for Justin Bieber. That's true. So maybe I would rather focus on who is this for, and I'll let the audience sort of self-reflect whether they feel they fall within that. And obviously, there's no rules, bro. Go do it. I'm simply saying what is my understanding of who this really works for. I think, generally speaking, you have to be unafraid to interact with strangers. You can't do this in a basement in your underwear, sending anonymous emails to banks and hoping that you raise some money. That's an unrealistic idea. If you are the type of person that's willing to put yourself out there and be accountable to others, accountability, are you accountable? Do you do what you say you were going to do? Do you speak clearly with conviction? Do you follow through? Second, when you reach out to a business owner, you have to have a lot of respect for that business owner, a lot of respect for the fact that they've built that organization over decades. In many cases, it represents their legacy. You need to convey that you are a good steward for that business. You need to sell them on why you are the right buyer. You then need to repeat this process with the bank. You need to sell the bank to back you. Assuming you don't have savings, you need to sell investors on why this strategy makes sense, why you are the right actor to back, and how they're going to make money. If you're not willing to be accountable, if you want to hide in the basement somewhere in your pajamas sending anonymous mails, this ain't for you. If you're not willing to get out of your comfort zone and speak with people, this ain't for you. Everything else can be learned, man. And I think beyond that, are you actually willing to do this? You know, don't be a crypto bro and 5 years ago you were in crypto, you know, 1 year ago you were looking at AI bots, and this year now you want to dabble in some M&A. You're probably going to fail. You're going to get the same results here as you got there.
How much money have you raised?
I would say...
Is that sensitive?
No, it's not sensitive. Between 2019 to today is, let's call it 2025 pre-summer, more than $15 million, less than $20 million. That's debt and equity. I would say probably closer to $15 million. To some people, that sounds like a lot of money. That's a big number to some. It was a big number to me, by the way, like a few years ago. Honestly, even 4 years ago, that was a big number to me. But then you realize, actually, that's not a big number at all. I mean, right now, I've said this many times, we're trying to raise multiples of that this year.
Yeah, you remember back in the days when you used to rock waves and shit?
How do you avoid a bad deal from the perspective of fundraising? Okay, I always like to start with the understanding that you or I, we're not owed nothing. You're not owed funding. Just because you raise your hand and want to raise some money doesn't mean you're owed some money. So first of all, you're not owed any deal, okay? So what is actually even a bad deal? If an investor risks their capital by handing it to you to back your vision through your efforts, and you agree to the terms of that investment, I don't even like the description good deal, bad deal, because you are two adults and you're doing business together, and therefore if the terms were good enough on the day you entered those terms, then frankly they should be good enough, period. But I understand the spirit of Oscar's question, which is, generally speaking, people want to know what is a bad deal and how do you avoid it. Let's talk about the mechanisms of funding. One is control. When you raise money or when you take money from other people, there's going to be discussions around control. Creditors, lenders, and banks have a way of exercising control over a business that they put debt into. Those control mechanisms include financial covenants. All that means, that's a fancy term, it just means what are the financial tests that the business has to achieve every month, every quarter, every year, such that it is a performing business. So covenants is one. Another one is something called change of control, right? So when a bank gives you money, you're not necessarily allowed to just sell 51% of your shares in your company to an outsider, because again, back to accountability, the bank gave you money. You, at least in principle, whilst you may not be personally liable, you certainly are personally accountable. And as part of that continued accountability, you may not be able to have a change of control. Okay, it's called a change of control clause, whereby you can't sell 51% to another third party. Another one may be on the extraction of value. You're not allowed to just, hey, raise money from a bank and pay yourself $1 million salary. Nor can you just pay yourself dividends. That's just when you take money out of a business that's not your salary. Typically it's after you've paid your taxes, and that's called a dividend. You're not allowed to just extract that economic value, suck the business dry of capital, because you have creditors. And so I would say those are some things that the bank wants control and authority over. They have different levers on how they sort of monitor that, on how they sort of apply control to that. But what you want to do is you want to avoid clauses that subject you to the bank fully, with very little discretion on your side. At the end of the day, you need flexibility to run the business. And whilst you welcome oversight from your banking partners, you certainly want to remain in control.
How to get over the fear of fucking it up?
How do you overcome the fear of raising money, debt from banks, equity from capital partners, the fear of screwing it up, okay? The fear of not meeting the expectations that you've set for your partners, let's say the counterparties. First of all, you're gonna feel fear. Fear is not a bad thing. Fear without action, meaning you have a sense of risks and you fail to mitigate those risks, that's a bad idea. But having a sense that things may go wrong or could go wrong or should not go wrong, and following that sense, that sentiment, with actions that limit either the chances that things go wrong or limit the scope of damage that can occur should they go wrong, failing to take those actions is failure. So I think feeling fear is okay. I feel fear every day, every week, every month, every year. I mean, as I said, I've probably raised, I don't know, between $15 and $20 million in debt, but debt refinances and equity over the last, call it 5-6 years. Obviously, I have some fear, but is it crippling fear? No, because in my case, the way I mitigate those risks, the fear of failure, is by empowering and supporting people who are more capable than I am at managing those risks. Leverage. I lever the capabilities of others who are better positioned to manage that risk than I am. If you believe that you're going to borrow money from a bank, raise money from capital partners, buy businesses that are profitable from third parties, hire people, incentivize people, trade in the open market, and face no risks, then you're a fool. That's a dream. Wake up. I was walking past my daughter's school the other day. I was actually running. And then her friend comes after her, and her friend says, "Is it true that you're a YouTuber?" I was like, "It's true, I am a YouTuber." Man, I saw the pride in my daughter's eyes. Her daddy's a YouTuber. Listen, if you enjoyed this video, for crying out loud, send it to someone. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to grow over here. Not once have I asked you, like and subscribe. Where's the call to action? Every Sunday we make a video for y'all. Like and subscribe. Hey, I'm a YouTuber.